So first, I'd like to say that I really hate these photos. I didn't enjoy taking them. I feel that it was morally dubious. I think that I made a lot of mistakes. I think I made the mistake of making homelessness seem beautiful in a way. I used the Rolleiflex twin lens camera shooting on 6x6 centimeter medium format, which captures a great deal more detail than 35mm, and also it uses a tremendously sharp lens. So I used a tripod and shot with about as much depth of field as I possibly could, which brings out a tremendous amount of detail. These pictures, as you may be able to tell, were taken underneath a railway bridge on the border between Manchester and Salford. I've shown these pictures to other people who have said that, they found them to be quite brilliant. I don't really think that that's the right word at all, because it shows something a lot worse than poverty. It shows the neglect of an entire society, that people have fallen through the net, and it's brought them here. It's brought them to a place of extreme pain and suffering. I shared these photos with someone, and it said it reminded them of the film The Road, which is of course about the apocalypse. The idea that these people are living in a world that is somehow disintegrated. One thing that isn't completely clear from these photos is just how dark these places were, and how dangerous it was to even take them. Some of the tunnels are quite a few meters deep, and there's no light, and no one can see or hear you. What I hope these pictures illustrate is that rather than people on the street having council homes and just begging for money for drugs, the reality is that these people possess absolutely nothing. Maybe they don't have a phone, they don't have water, soap, toothpaste, deodorant, they don't have any way to keep themselves clean. All they have is bedding. They either have a sleeping bag, maybe if they're lucky they've got a tent, and maybe they've got hard drugs. Maybe all they have to escape this extremely dark reality that they've found themselves in is injecting heroin, which, given the circumstances, you can understand. We take for granted the emotional security that we have, having a front door that you can lock, or having a burglar alarm, whereas on the street anybody could harm you at any time, and that's something that happens quite frequently. Homeless people are assaulted, urinated on, set on fire, people burn money in front of them, people take knives and cut into the tents, and there's no justification for any of this to happen. There's no reason for any of these people to be on the streets. There's a surplus of housing in the UK. There's hundreds of thousands of empty properties that could be allocated on a temporary basis. There's endless amounts of land. There's no reason for anyone to not have a home. It's not a competition. There's no reason. It's not a competition. Just because someone is able to work and provide for themselves doesn't mean that someone else deserves to freeze and starve. There's a mentality that people won't work hard and try to provide for themselves if there isn't the constant looming threat of homelessness, of starvation. But I think it's quite innate in people that they do want to survive. From my own experience being disabled, all I want to do is contribute. I would like a job. I would like to feel like I'm contributing to the world. I'd love to meet people and engage with them and help them, but those avenues are blocked. Once you're on the street and you don't have a fixed address and you fall out of the system, then there's kind of no way back, and there's no reason for that to happen. There's people whose responsibility is to provide these things to people, but there's this kind of mentality of out of sight, out of mind. Once you're living under a bridge or living in a disused mill, it's like you don't exist to certain people. And I don't know what it is. There are people who see others on the street begging, and all they want to do is assume that they don't deserve help, create a story for them in their own heads that justifies why they simply don't care about other people. With regards to the morally dubious nature of these pictures, all I can really say is you probably wouldn't like it if I broke into your house and took pictures of you, or took pictures of your bedroom or your private spaces, and that's really what I did. But I felt it was at the same time completely necessary to do. Simultaneously to doing this work around 2011, I was additionally feeding the homeless. I would go out from Manchester University, down Oxford Road, down Deansgate and back up Market Street, and we would find dozens of people begging. Additionally, there would be a static group of people feeding the homeless underneath Piccadilly train station, and we would encounter quite a lot of people. The one thing that I do recall quite clearly, which was contrary to a lot of my expectations, was that homeless people are generally quite positive, friendly people, which boggles the mind in a way that I myself might suffer from a lack of gratitude for what I have, whereas people who have absolutely nothing whatsoever and no prospects at all might be able to see the world in a very positive light and be very grateful. Quite often we would have a surplus of food to give out, and we'd offer them additional soup and sandwiches, and they would refuse it. They would say, no, give it to someone else who needs it more than I do. This is coming from someone who has, as I said, absolutely nothing.